Woody Allen says like 99% of success is to show up, and I'm almost sorry that I started to do this lecture, and I'm sorry for you who have to listen to my English, but hopefully you will understand at least some of it. Nutrition was always my hobby, and nutrition is having a very serious impact on your health. And I would say that it's important to differentiate who is your friend and who is your foe in nutrition. We all know that organic food is the best. We don't like to eat all kinds of pesticides, but we probably need to concentrate also on substance of what we are eating. Probably most of you already know the facts that concentrated sugars and simple carbohydrates are our enemies. Cancer is sort of living on sugar. Sugar is increasing cholesterol. Of course, we all know the rising number of diabetes in the population. And my feeling is that Alzheimer's disease, we are already having about 4.7 million of fellow Americans who are suffering from this neurodegenerative disease, is closely connected with simple carbohydrates as well. Here I'm listing basically what I call civilization diseases. When we started to process all the food, we started to get much more heart disease, cancer, diabetes mellitus, and Alzheimer's disease. I'm not going to discuss genetics because also it depends on the penetration of the genes, and it's very individual. The reason why we are talking about nutrition, because this is one thing what we can influence. We can make the right choices. And sometimes I am sort of reflecting why some people who are very sophisticated do die from cancer. Recently, a few well-known actors were dying from cancer, and I was just wondering if in the old age people don't get sort of lazy, try to simplify their diet, and they start eating only these cookies, cakes, and boxed food, and if that's not part of the reason where they get too many calories, they still look like they are in good shape, but the immunity starts to falter. So basically, on this slide, Kali, in a very nice way, summarizes what I'm trying to say with my bad English. Our food is full of chemicals, full of sugar, full of salt, and until recently, food like milk and meat were fortified with hormones. And in this light, I think we need to also question not only the nutritional value, but also the fact that we are getting a lot of substances in our body which don't belong there. And it would be desirable sort of to clean our body from all this mess what we are getting in through all kind of foods. And here comes the friend, what all of us are calling fiber. And if we are having mess at home, we are trying to sort of sweep it out. And in my view, fiber is probably fulfilling this purpose when ingested. Reactive diet is kind of my term, where we are basically decreasing transition time of food through our system. And I personally created a small hypothesis for myself that actually Alzheimer's disease, which is most frequent neurodegenerative disease, is sort of preventable. The hallmark of Alzheimer's disease is deposition of beta amyloid in the brain in hippocampal area. And it could be sort of transudated, that it's going through the vessels. Maybe there could be also role of leak gut syndrome. And because of that, the substance is being deposited in the brain and causing all these behavioral and horrible neurologic symptoms. And I'm just wondering if we would increase the amount of fiber in our diet, if there is no chance that we would either postpone or prevent development of this illness. And that's just my hypothesis. And it's a very simple idea, maybe too simple for some people, but I would just mention two of my heroes from the past and present. Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis was living about 200 years ago. He was acting obstetrician in first obstetrical clinic in Vienna. And in those days, perinatal mortality was sky high. You can imagine how devastating it was when all these moms were dying at the time when they were delivering babies. And Dr. Semmelweis was basically struck by the fact that moms who were delivered by obstetricians were dying in much, much higher number than moms who were delivered by midwives. And there was only one difference he could differentiate. Those who were delivered by obstetrician, these physicians attended autopsies. So he basically assumed that there might be a germ which is being transmitted from these cadavers to moms. And he advised to all the providers to wash their hands in chlorine solution. The results were extremely dramatic. He was basically able to decrease perinatal mortality immensely. He published his studies, and surprisingly enough, it was very substantiated research. He was not recognized by authorities, and basically he died in a psychiatric asylum, and I just hope this is not going to happen to me. Another hero of mine is Dr. Dean Ornish. He's a practicing cardiologist in San Francisco, California, and he already about 30 years ago published a very nice, elegant study where he proved that a strict vegetarian diet is able to prevent and to a certain extent also treat heart disease. And his research is very well recognized. The only problem is that this diet is not that palatable, even I quote many cardiologists, it's definitely not palatable for me. And here comes Mr. Fiber. And fiber is having a lot of benefits, and just to name few, it's basically improving sense of well-being, it's improving regularity, it's controlling weight, and it's preventing many illnesses like bowel cancer, gallbladder disease, pancreatic disease, and even strokes. Even more, 70% of the immunity is attached to the bowel. There is such a term called GALT, or gut-associated lymphatic tissue. And both cellular and humoral immunity is basically related to the gut. And more fiber we take is basically improving the function of the bowel as well improving the immunity. We recognize few types of fiber. One is water-soluble, like pectins, which you can find in apples and citrus fruit. Then there is roughage, which is basically in cabbage, potatoes, and beans, and also whole wheat flour and whole wheat bran. And then recently it was introduced resistant starch, which is contained in raw potatoes, green bananas, and also if you cook noodles or white rice, cool it down very quickly, you can get this resistant starch. Resistant starch is sort of like medicine for the bowel. It's producing butyrate, and our bowel cells, they really love it. And it's also improving sensitivity to insulin. Resistance to insulin is a major problem for diabetic and very obese patients, and maybe in the future it will find its place in even pharma use. Recommended amount of fiber for men is about 38 grams, and for women it's 25 grams, and it was basically, the difference was extrapolated based on the amount of calories recommended for both sexes. Most of the people, though, ingest only 15 grams of fiber per day, and I definitely would recommend over 50 grams per day. And of course, if you take fiber, you need to drink a lot, and probably 8 ounces of water would be the appropriate amount. More people drink, the better. Fiber is also producing probiotics. Probiotics are now very much in fashion. You can find them in a natural way as a part of yogurt, sauerkraut or sourdough. They are part of medicine, and a lot of juices are being fortified by them. But I believe that fiber is actually a better way to multiply for these good bacteria in our gut who are living there in trillions, because probiotics can be destroyed by gastric acid, by heat and time. So sometimes, even if they write there is 10 million of probiotics in this pill or bottle, you don't know how much you really get. Prebiotics is plant food, like fructans, inulin, and oligofructose, and glucans, and they are also helping to produce these good bacteria. We need to be very careful in people who are having diseases like irritable colon or Crohn's disease, because they cannot tolerate them too well. So I will conclude this talk by the fact that we are actually having a biotech factory in our belly, and we don't have to basically rely on our pharma industry, though they are fantastic. I'm just amazed by their research and products, but they are becoming really too expensive. And here I brought up a few drawings. We don't have money, so this is the latest equipment what anybody can use. If you did not listen to my talk, you will probably need to use plunger, because this automatic electric defibrillator might be too expensive for you. Some people don't know how to use broom. This is corrective use, and this is the correct use. If you don't eat fiber, you will look like this. And some people are thinking that if you have this apple-type obesity, we are having our fantastic cardiologist here. I don't know if he would confirm it. If you have a lot of abdominal obesity, you might have a heart disease. If you eat 50 grams of fiber or more, you look like this. And this is an X-ray from my office. I told to this patient that he needs to use plunger, and he swallowed it. So the main problem is that some people are not following my instructions, and now a major problem is he cannot do yoga. And for all of you who were listening to my lecture, after I leave town, you can pick up your diploma of medical doctor. But you need to wait until I leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.